We're interviewing Commander George Wood, U.S. Navy, and we're going to look at his experiences in anti-submarine warfare. George, tell us a little bit about your background, where you were born and where you grew up.
I was born in the Germantown section of Philadelphia. I grew up in the Germantown section of Philadelphia. I went to grade school in the Germantown section, and then later high school at the Northeast Catholic High School for boys over in the Torresdale section of Philadelphia. From there, well, things got kind of messed up. I was the class of 41, and as you'll recall, the Japanese did their dirty deed in that particular year in December, which altered my plans as far as education was concerned. And my father was pushing me to make sure that I did Navy, and so I had the opportunity to sign up for Naval Aviation Cadet Training, which I did actually at the University of Pennsylvania, the first one that was called active duty. The first part of that was a pre-flight school, which the Navy had taken over segments of the university, and they had pre-flight training there. And from there we went to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and did more pre-flight training. And
what aircraft did you fly during the training phase?
Piper, little Piper Cub, and so we got our first taste of flying an airplane in a Piper Cub.
And then from there?
From there, of course, we went into training at different naval bases. From there, we went into pre-flight training in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and were sent either to one of the two major Navy training bases, one in Pensacola, the other in Corpus Christi. So I apparently was selected to get orders to be sent down to Corpus Christi to start my naval flight training down in Corpus Christi, Texas.
What did you fly there?
Oh, we flew, we called it the SNJ, the North America. I forget what the
Air Force called it T6. When you got your wings,
got my wings in Corpus.
And then where were you assigned after that?
We were sent to Florida, where we started flying in Navy type aircraft. And in that instance, of course, it was the torpedo bomber, the Avenger.
What was the technique on the torpedo bombers? That was a very dangerous way to earn a living. Talk about the technique in using the in torpedo bombing.
It got a bad reputation during torpedo work because the squadron was literally wiped out by the Japanese fighters. So the TBM, TBF, and torpedo work got a sort of a bad reputation. Nobody wanted to get involved in that because of what happened to this particular squadron. But the training and the use of dropping a torpedo was we went through the regular phases of how you flew and where you flew. We usually started out with a flight of airplanes, anywhere from 6 to 12 planes. Started out usually up at around 10,000 feet to start our torpedo run, and you made a high-speed let-down and leveled off at about 800 feet, as I recall, and the trick was to coordinate your speed and your altitude, so that when you did release the torpedo that we were carrying, if it wasn't released properly, it would either make a flat landing and really destroy the torpedo, or if you were too high, it would nose in. You had to be at the right altitude and speed, so that, and usually that was for about 800 feet, as I recall, so that when you released the torpedo, it had a gentle entry into the water, so it could surface.
What would your airspeed be when you released the torpedo?
We were probably knocking it off about 180 knots, somewhere in that neck of the woods.
Yeah. The Navy didn't stay with the torpedo bombing.
No, we didn't. As it turned out, that particular model airplane turned out to be, by reason of its ability to be used for a number of different things, it was a workhorse, really.
How many people were in the airplane?
Originally, we had a pilot, a radioman, and a gunner. The radioman, of course, was down in the bilge.
Well, staying with the still on active duty. So, where were you assigned for the remainder of your service? You were with the Atlantic Fleet.
Yeah, we were under the supervision of Comair Lant, which was the Commander Air Force Atlantic Fleet, and I guess there was a number of different. I was in NAS Vero Beach for a while. I was in Jacksonville for a while. I was down in Key West. Those three areas is where we flew from during the war.
Talk about the anti-submarine work. You said that there was the Germans had U-boats in the Gulf of Mexico.
Quite a few, apparently.
And how did you seek them out?
Well, we did an awful lot of our work at night, because unless you had a particular sighting of a torpedo in the daytime, which is unusual because the Germans weren't about to bring their subs up to the surface during the day.
On a typical mission in hunting the submarines, talk about how you track.
We had what we called sonobuoys. If we had a suspicion of a submarine below the surface, we had these sonobuoys that could be dropped. You
would drop those if you had an idea that there was a submarine in the area?
Yeah. If your initial indications, like I said, with the use of this MAD boom.
Okay, the MAD stood for?
Magnetic Air Detection. It was a boom that registered the effect of a mass of metal, which a submarine was.
Okay, when the war ended, you left the Navy?
No, I was given orders to join the Naval Reserves. An officer that was up at Willow Grove.
What did you fly in out of Willow Grove?
Well, I started flying out of Willow Grove, the same kind of equipment that I was flying on active duty. And then from that point on, we got into multi-engine with the plane called the S2F, the Stoof. And I did most of my flying out of Willow Grove in the S2F.
You said that there were different types of squadrons at Willow Grove. What did they have different missions?
Well, yeah, they had fighter squadrons up there, TBM, TBF type squadrons.
The fighter squadrons, what kind of aircraft did they have?
They were usually, well, most of them were Hellcat, the F6F, which was another Grumman product. They did have some Marines who used the the Corsair, the bent wing. We used to call it the bent wing because of the
gull wing.
Yeah, the gull wing.
As you think back of your flying career, can you do any interesting or humorous events come to mind?
There was one instance where one of the Shorty Doors was his name. We were probably coming back from Virginia or Florida, I can't remember where. He had to relieve himself in a number of ways. So he took his hard hat off and used his hard hat to take care of nature.
He must have been a very popular fellow in the airplane.
Yeah.
Well, in a plane like the TBM or the TBF, there was no facility for that. All told, how many years did you fly in the Navy, in the active and reserve?
Yeah, because the combined years about 23, 24 years, I guess.
How many flying hours did you have?
I'd have to get my logbook out. It was somewhere in the area of 1,800 hours. Not that many, but it was a respectable amount for single engine type pilots. It's not like you were flying in some of the big stuff that you get up there and you flew and you flew and you flew. Didn't know when to come home.
When you're doing it 2, 3, 4 hours at a time, it's a lot of sorties. You've talked mostly about land-based operations, but you were carrier qualified.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what it was like to land on a carrier, and perhaps maybe your first carrier landing. How you approached that, and what were you thinking about?
Well, of course, before you actually went to sea to land on a carrier, you did preparation work, land-based. They had back in those days. The carrier had what was known as the landing signal officer, the LSD. He was the man with the paddles on the aft end of the carrier, which were the LSD. He's the guy that guided the planes with the use of the paddles, whether or not you're too high or too low, or you weren't fast enough. I mean, certain signals that he made with the paddles.
Do you recall what the signals were?
Well, if the paddles are up like that, that indicated if your approach was too high, and this type of motion with the paddles, and then of course there was this kind of motion. Come on, you're a little too slow, or if you were too fast, he could use these paddles to give you an indication of how you were doing in terms of your approach to a carrier landing, and basically it was the LSD was a Navy pilot, so he wasn't ignorant of what the pilot was doing. He was a carrier qualified pilot.
What was your thinking, though, as you would approach the ship? I mean, you're moving, the ship's moving, the ship is moving up and down. How did you judge that?
Well, it wasn't something that you could judge from your seat in terms of your carrier approach. Again, the LSD was the one that could make whatever adjustments in your approach were needed based on what the ship was going through. If it was relatively calm seas, well, you didn't have to worry about the tail end of the carrier flopping up and down in the water. If it was a rough situation where the waters were rough, why that's something that that's something that a good landing signal officer would take care of in terms of his guiding you into a proper approach for the landing.
And as you approached the deck, you had a hook around on the back that would catch a cable. Was that the technique that you used?
That was, yes. We had the tail hook, which could be deployed. It has to be deployed, because if you didn't, why, well, that would be taken care of. You wind up in the barriers. And
how about the takeoff? Now, what was the technique on getting off the carrier?
One of two ways. You could fly off, or you could be jettisoned off.
The steam catapult?
Yeah.
Which did you prefer?
I think probably, looking back on it, I think probably catapult was a lot easier. Fly away, why, you know, you're hopeful. By the time you reach the bow, you were hopeful you had enough airspeed. It wasn't too uncommon to see the plane kind of lose altitude as it left the forward end if you didn't have enough wind over the deck. But generally speaking, I don't ever recall having anybody hit the drink in front of the carrier.
Well, let's sum this up, and let's looking back at your naval experience. World War II, you know, was the really great growth in naval aviation,
yeah.
and you were there to witness it.
Yeah, particularly at night, because we made carrier landings at night weren't the easiest thing in the world. You didn't have an awful lot to work with. As far as lining up, there was a row of lights in the deck to make sure you were lined up with the center of the deck. But night work, night landing was a bit of a challenge. Most of us made it. Some of us didn't.
Thanks, George. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.